Hello, friends. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Before it begins, we want to let you know that this episode includes discussion of loss, grief, and pregnancy. So if you're not in a place to hear that right now, we totally understand. Thank you so much for being here.
This is Sarah Stewart Holland.
And this is Beth Silvers.
You're listening to The Nuanced Life, a Pantsuit Politics production.
Thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of our limited return of The Nuanced Life. We're down to the final 2 episodes in this series. It's really been fun for us to make. We hope that you have enjoyed it as much as we have. We've loved commemorating your big and small moments. And today, we're going to commemorate a bit from our own lives. 2 episodes back, we talked about caregiving. And sometimes it's easy to kind of park there when we're thinking about older members in our family to just center the conversation on the difficulties of supporting the last years of their lives. But there is so much more to them and so much more to those relationships. So today we want to celebrate older women in our lives. Sarah is going to share a conversation she had with her grandmother, her Mima, who is in her 80s and still living a very active life in Paducah. Mima is so much fun to be around. It is the kind of conversation that I would give a lot to have with my grandmother, Joy, who is so special and dear to me. She passed away 9 years ago. And so at the end, I've written a little something about my grandmother, Joy, to share with all of you too, so that she is present in this episode as she still is in my life, even though she's no longer physically here with me. But before all of that, I want to remind you that Sarah and I are available for speaking events. We still have some openings this fall. We would love to join your company, your school, your church, your organization to talk about having hard conversations in ways that strengthen relationships. It does not have to be political. We are happy to help walk your group through this election season together, but we understand that there is a lot going on in the world right now, and we want to be out there helping people grow stronger relationships, whether that is in the context of politics or not. Even if you've reached out before and the timing or the pricing wasn't right, we hope you'll get in touch with us again. We would love to be with as many of you as possible this fall and help you in this season that is filled with difficult conversations that can really help us move forward if we will lean into them with grace. Send Elise an email at hello@pantsuitpoliticsshow.com and we'll get you connected. Up next, it's Sarah and her Mima, Betty Skidmore.
Do you care if I ask you how old you are?
I'm 88.
88.
You don't want to tell your age until you get to the point where you're on bonus years, and then you kind of brag. Then, like, I should have died statistically at 77.
Is that the age for American women?
Right now it is. So I think that's about it. So that means that I've had 11 bonus years.
Bonus years. 88. How's it feel to be 88?
Some days it just really feels bad. I've just gone through a thing. I did the whole 30 religiously. I had a man in my house building a shower, a tile shower, which took about 2+ weeks. A very nice man, excellent. But he was in my house. And the very day that I finished the whole 30 and he finished the shower, my nose started running like a faucet. And I have been sort of like down and out from that day on. I was starting to feel absolutely wonderful. I was going to this exercise program that for senior citizens called Silver Sneakers at the gym. I was going on Tuesday and Thursday to a workout that was a Christmas present from my family with a personal trainer. So I was doing all these things right, and then bam. So you know what they say about making plans. If you want to hear God laugh, make a plan.
It does feel like, small physical things that don't seem like a big deal in your obviously your 40s, like will really wipe you out.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And that must be
well,
hard.
It's hard. I mean, I was to the point before I started the whole 30 that, I could work for 30 minutes and then I'd just sit down, and I've always been basically lazy. I have to push myself. I don't have that energy that some people are born with, like my mother. who looked at me one time when she was about 85 and said, I'm tired. And I said, well, yeah. She said, no, I've never been tired. I didn't know what people were talking about.
Oh, wow.
But she was big frame and short, and she just never sat down. She never rushed, but she never sat down.
Let's talk about her. Let's go back to the beginning.
The beginning?
The beginning.
My first memory?
Your first, what was your first? I don't know my first memory.
I was born in a house on a farm that my dad was leasing, renting, whatever. He was basically a tenant farmer. They had torn the old house down and just built a new one there. The insurance company had repossessed a lot of farm land. It was still Depression when I was born. And so we lived there until I probably, best I can figure out, around 2, and we moved to a farm that my granddaddy owned over just within sight of the USEC plant now. And I remember my first memory is being disturbed over this truck that was putting furniture on this. It was a circle drive, and they were this big truck, and I still can have this memory of this big truck putting furniture on it, and I was, I stressed by it. Yeah. And that's my first memory.
Your first memory is stress over furniture on a truck?
I'm looking back and thinking I was bound to be stressed over why were they taking our furniture out of the house, to move us to the farm.
Oh, they were moving you. It was your furniture. Okay.
It was our furniture. We were
I remember you telling me you remember the Lindbergh kidnapping and feeling very
and Carolyn
scared.
Was just petrified. She just knew she was going to be kidnapped,
So you are the second of 4 children.
Yes. And I was 18 months younger than my older sister, who became, she thought, my mother for my whole life. Told on me as a teenager until I finally found something on her that I blackmailed her for a while, and that worked for a while. But she always did think, she was supposed to boss me around.
You're the middle of 3 sisters, and then there's a baby brother.
Yes. I'm 9 years older than my baby brother.
And I feel like not just the birth order, but the being a girl among these girls and then the boy really informed how you spoke to us about your childhood and how you thought about your childhood. Oh,
absolutely. I've always felt invisible.
Because you were the middle child.
Uh-huh. Yes, and I was born with a twisted foot, and it was not bone. It touched my ankle on the outside, my left foot. And so the doctor, little country doctor who delivered me, put me in a cast, and I was in that cast for about a month or six weeks or something. When they took it off, my mother said my little leg was so skinny, she thought I would always have
I didn't know that.
That leg, looking like that. And my mother had a kind of a Calvinist attitude toward, the idea of the doctrine of the elect. And, if you're prosperous because God shines on you because you're a good person, regardless how terrible you're acting.
But what always never made sense to me about that is that you are and were very beautiful. You were the beautiful child. And beauty is such a currency and a thing people notice. I tell people the story all the time that people would come up to you and Carolyn, the 18-month older sister, and say, they would look at you and say, what a beautiful baby. And they would look at Carolyn and say, what's your name?
Yeah, that's kind of the way it was.
So people saw you because you were beautiful. So why did you feel invisible?
Well, I just learned, I think, that if I stayed invisible, I could get by with more.
Mm.
My dad kind of favored me, and I think that's because he realized a little bit about this,
Yeah.
A middle child has a hard time standing out without acting up.
Standing out without acting up.
Mm-hmm. We all have trouble with that.
Right, because you can't.
Especially now in this culture.
Totally. I told Griffin that the other day. I said, imagine how you would feel confidence-wise if there was always somebody 2 years older telling you weren't doing it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was
it just creates a inferiority complex in you almost built in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't keep up with Carolyn. She was always an adult pleaser, which the oldest child typically is. And I certainly wasn't going to fill that mold because she was already in it.
I do want to say that my Aunt Carolyn was beloved in our family.
Absolutely.
She died several years ago in her 70s, of pancreatic cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's just that sibling.
Yeah.
But did you mother Barbara, your younger sister?
No. Barbara and Carolyn were buddies. They got along beautifully. Carolyn, took piano lessons first, of course. And, of course, everybody took piano lessons back then. And Carolyn, played the piano at church and got paid to play the piano for revivals and that kind of thing. Of course, grandmother, Alan, She was the first grandchild. She was very special to them. She'd go and stay with them and pretend that she was working in the grocery store, and they would pay her to work in the grocery store when she was 8, 10 years old. And so she was always, the shining star. And I was not, keyed into the fact that I was prettier than she was for many years. Barbara.
When did you realize that? When did you realize? Was it boys paying attention?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. I wouldn't tell you that being pretty is an asset in the long run.
Tell me why.
Well, you get noticed by guys too soon, and you have a lot of opportunities to date the popular boys and all that stuff, and make bad choices about which one to date, maybe, and who knows. Anyway, another thing that I think really changed my life without anybody making an attempt was Mom's idea that Carolyn was the college-bound one. And I know one time she told me that I could either go to PCC, which is a community college, or to Transylvania, which was the church college. But I couldn't go to Murray, where Carolyn was. And I was smart enough to figure that out. She was afraid I would embarrass Carolyn.
What do you mean she thought you would embarrass Carolyn?
Carolyn was at Murray.
But what was embarrassing about you?
I don't know. Mom thought I was wild child. My friends were, not the goody two shoes that Carolyn's friends were. But they weren't nearly that wild. I mean, no girl dared to be wild back then. Really.
So wait, I have a question before we get into like your teenage years. When I didn't know that about your foot in the cast.
You didn't?
No. Were you conscious of that? Like, did you?
No.
So it never affected you once you.
Oh yes, I toed in this, and I still do. My left foot toes in a little if I'm tired.
Yeah.
I never did walk. I never did have a pretty walk.
Oh, okay. So you kind of like.
It's not. Yeah, I was.
Did somebody tell you about it, or your foot always bothered you?
Oh, I knew, and I had to wear these old ugly brown lace-up shoes. And Mom gave me dancing lessons, thinking I might learn how to walk, and it's always been an issue with me.
That's interesting.
Still is.
Because you're that. I had no idea that you were.
Yeah, that foot is not as strong. My leg's not as strong as the other one.
Okay, so I was just trying to put that piece into sort of the invisibility and feeling different. And you weren't like a big student. Carolyn had taken that role, so you weren't.
I couldn't read. I didn't learn to read. At the first grade, I had about 5 different teachers.
Dang.
Back then at Heath, it was a school that you started in first grade and you went through 12th in the same building. At 6th grade, 7th grade, you moved up to the top floor. So, that off and on during that whole year, we had lots of substitutes, and they were high school girls.
Oh, wow.
Then the 2nd grade, we had this nice, sweet teacher that didn't really teach us much. I remember sitting around a table and this boy crying all the time because he didn't want to be at school. That's about my only memory of that year. And then 3rd grade, I got in this class where this teacher thought we should know something. Well, I have some kind of a dyslexia or something. I mean, I just didn't pick up on it. And I'm attention deficit.
Mom has that
many years before I was ever.
That's so interesting because I think
aware
this
of that.
Perception of education back then is like so exacting and the standards were so high and kids learn so much more, but you had high school girls as substitutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you struggle in school.
I was about in the 5th grade when I started learning. I learned to read enough to enjoy it.
That's old.
And I look back, and if there had been TV, I never would have become a reader.
Oh, yeah, because you had...
But I was forced to with the boredom in Heath during summer.
Nothing else to do.
Uh-huh. We had a lady that would bring a carload of books down to the little grocery store from the library, and I'd go down and get books. And
from the public library?
Yes,
from the library.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Carnegie Library.
I was going to say the old Carnegie.
Oh, it's the most fabulous place in the world.
I know. I'm so sad. I never got to see it.
It was wonderful.
Our Carnegie Library built by the Carnegie Endowment.
Yes.
Did it burn or they tear it down? It burned, right?
It burned. It was one of the first. Well, it didn't really. It could have been fixed, but that was in that era when everybody's
we'll tear down
modern
something
buildings.
Pretty new. Yeah. Okay, so you get through school. The boys are paying attention.
Actually, I was almost an honor student. I had good grades.
So there we go.
School was not hard. If you carefully chose your classes, stayed out of chemistry, and we didn't even have a lab. I didn't want that.
So when did you meet Daddy Bud? Daddy Bud is my grandfather, by the way.
I was a junior, probably.
Junior year. And did you start dating immediately?
No, we dated about a year. He ran around with, he was from Bandana, and somehow the Heath girls and the Bandana boys, were all buddies. We all dated Ballard County boys. That was the school that's the county on the Mississippi.
And so, did you want to go to college, or you were already like not interested?
I kind of did, but I was in love, I would have definitely gone to college. I think if Mom had taken me to Transylvania to see it, I might have done it. Who knows,
Well, you had a granddaughter go to Transylvania.
I know.
I think that's where I heard about Transylvania.
That.
Yeah, I think you planted the seed.
I did. I wanted you to go there.
Yeah. It worked.
We like to use our grandchildren to relive our lives.
It works better if our grandmother tells you. If mother had told me, I probably wouldn't have gone. So, okay, you're in love. You're how old? 16?
18. 17, 18.
17. And you're starting to date.
Got engaged on my birthday, February the 20th, my senior year.
Senior year of high school. And he was about to be drafted for Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Were they drafting people then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dang, how did I miss that?
Like crazy.
Because Joe went, or Aunt Carolyn's husband.
He was drafted, I'm sure.
So then, did you immediately get married? Like, how long were you engaged?
From February till June.
Not very long.
We got married.
You got married.
But that was so common. I mean, there's 3 or 4 girls were planning their wedding during our senior year.
Yes, it was. Yeah. The MRS degree was what you got in high school.
My husband was afraid of shots. So we went to Mississippi. He didn't want to have to get a blood test. Back then, you had to get a blood test.
Oh, yeah. So you went to Mississippi.
Yeah.
Did you have a wedding? Like a traditional wedding?
We went to preacher. No.
No, because I've never seen pictures of anything.
My sister Carolyn was the first person that I remember having a church wedding.
Oh, her wedding was so pretty. It's
down
like
there.
Very like picture perfect what you think of a 50s wedding.
Very rare for people. I mean, she was the first one. Of course, she went to college and got these big ideas too. At Murray State.
So you get married at 18? Okay, 18 years old.
And at 20, I had Lisa.
And 20, you had Mom. Both a year later or even a little less?
14 months.
14 months later. Greg is what, 2 years later?
2 years later.
And Lana is how many years after that?
3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
So what was it like having all those tiny kids?
I can hardly remember.
I know. You must have been.
And plus no money, When Greg was a baby, he decided we were going to be farmers.
What were you till that point?
Pipe fitter. He was a pipe fitter.
Oh, yeah, he was a pipe fitter.
He was doing his apprenticeship as a pipe fitter. And all of a sudden he said, I found a farm I want to buy. I said, what? A farm? Where?
So you had all these kids. You buy the farm before Lana's born. And that's the farm I knew with the pool. That's right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how long had you been married when Lana was born?
When she was born in 62, we married in 54, so 8 years.
Well, I remember one time you telling me, like, I don't know how you do all this with these little kids. Like, we would go to music classes and we'd go to library story hour and all this stuff. And I said, well, I have a dishwasher and a washing machine and an automatic vacuum. I just feel like probably you don't remember because so much of what you were doing was just monotonous chores that required a lot of labor.
Which I don't do well. That's attention deficit people do not do monotonous chores.
And you had to be cooking all the time.
And I just multitask all the time. I still try to do it, but my 88-year-old brain is not it's not as adept as it was then. Adept.
Yeah, so you just were cooking and cleaning.
Cooking and cleaning and taking care of children and running them here and running them there. And I couldn't wait for Lisa to get a driver's license so she could take on some of that. And then she was such a terrible driver, I wouldn't let her take my children. But after the year that my mother graduated from college.
Because when did grandmother decide to go to college?
When she decided that Jimmy and Daddy were adult enough to take care of themselves, fix their own breakfast.
So that's cool. That was pretty out of the ordinary, right?
I'll tell you what year it was. The year I had my first baby.
So you had your first baby.
Mom went to college.
And how old was Jimmy, her youngest child?
I had my first baby when I was 20, so he was 11.
So 11. I mean, that's pretty out of the ordinary back then.
Yeah. She was going to go to college, and she ran out and got married. And So, that was always in her future to go to college. And that's when she finally got around to it. She graduated from college at 45, went straight through 4 years. The summer that she graduated, she came to my house at the farm and brought a babysitter who lived in a little apartment behind their house and took me to college at Murray. I loved it. I took an art class.
So wait, how old were your kids when you did this?
Oh, well, Greg was a baby.
And she brought a babysitter and took you to college.
Uh-huh.
And how old were you?
Well, he was 70. I was born in 36.
I don't do math.
Okay, I was 25 because I graduated at 35, and it took me 10 years to get through college.
Because I was the first generation to just go out of high school.
Yeah, I remember Granddad telling you to do that.
Yes, grandmother did it.
And I did it, and your mother went for a while and majored in a sorority and then went back and finished.
Then went, but dropped out and then went back. Yeah. And I was the only one that went through for the first time in 4 years.
Yes.
So, okay, so you start when you're 25. I definitely thought you were older. You started when you were 25 and Greg was a baby going to classes with grandmother. Like during the day or in the evening or?
Oh, in the day, every day. Summer school, 5 days a week.
Oh, summer school. Okay.
Six weeks probably.
So you just did it during the summer?
Yeah, that summer.
Okay.
And then I didn't do it again until I had Lana and I started going to PCC, which was, convenient.
Yeah.
And I would just go 3 days a week.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, they were so little and you were doing this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you loved it. You wanted more.
I love school, yeah.
Who doesn't love school? I mean, people don't
College
love school.
is
I love school.
so wonderful for adults.
Yeah, it is wasted on
you really appreciate it. I used to be so upset with these kids that would come in there half asleep and not pay attention. I think, your parents are paying for this.
Yep. Okay, so you start taking classes. You have Lana, so you have little kids. And you're just going and you're just taking like 1 or 2 classes at a time, basically, in the summer. Did you take any during the school year or mostly during the summer?
It's mainly during the school year.
Okay.
I would take Lana they were in school by then, most of that. Yeah, they were in school, the 3 other ones.
Okay.
And I would take her to friends who babysat with her, or took her to a daycare for a while. And she didn't like it because they told her what she had to have for lunch. And I realized I'd been saying, what do you want for lunch today? So she thought she was supposed to order lunch.
What did Daddy Beth think about all this?
Well, he'd already agreed that I could go to college if we go ahead and get married. That was part of the marriage agreement between the two of us.
Okay.
So he had to stomach it. He didn't like it.
He didn't like it.
No. He told me one time he thought as soon as I got my degree, I'd leave.
Is that what happened?
No. I had 4 children. A teacher's salary would not support 4 children.
No. So you get when did you decide when you're taking these classes to become a teacher?
It pretty much was decided for me. You get so much in your basics in history and English. So being a teacher made sense for a woman with that many children.
Yeah. And Carolyn was a teacher.
And Carolyn was a teacher. And my grandmother had been a teacher, and my aunts had all been teachers. And so it was just kind of a family business,
Cars and teaching.
And so history and English just was the easiest for major that I could. I have a double major in history and English.
Okay, so you get the degree finally in, did you say 70? No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I went to work at Ballard.
So you started working. How old was everybody when you started working?
1970.
You didn't know this was going to be a math test.
No, and I don't like math. Elisa was about 14.
Okay, so older.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but that means Lana's like what, 4?
They were all in school.
Apart.
They were in school.
Okay, so everybody's in school, and you're teaching at Ballard. They're at school at Heath. You're teaching and you started teaching English.
English. I taught English at first. Yeah, I taught English.
This is the fun overlap.
Junior English,
which is when you teach my father at Ballard.
Yeah, that's when I met John.
And he's his favorite teacher still to this day.
Yeah.
How long did you teach English?
About 4 years, probably.
So you didn't. Then you taught
history. I taught history after that. Junior history.
Okay, so you taught for how many years?
About 7.
And then you became the guidance counselor.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
I was encouraged to get my degree. You had to get a master's in 10 years to keep your certification in Kentucky. We used to have really high standards, higher than almost any state. And of course, you got a big pay raise. And then when you became a counselor, you had so many years to get another certificate. So, I have 3 certificates, probably 220 college hours. I thought about getting a doctorate at one point, and then I thought, you would just be doing that to please your mother. Or maybe to show her. I don't know. But I didn't do it. I was going to have to go to SIU and all that stuff. But I like counseling a lot.
And so you decided to become the guidance counselor about. And how long were you the guidance counselor about?
Until I retired in 96.
So what, 20-something years?
Well, no, 7.
A little less?
19, I guess.
Wow. Did you like counseling better than teaching?
Yes, I felt like I was better at it.
Why?
I don't know. I'm a good listener, and I'm empathetic, and I hate doing discipline. I hate telling somebody who knows how to act how they're supposed to act. To me, it's kind of an insult.
That's hilarious. I'm an Enneagram 1, and I love to tell people how to act.
I don't.
That's my favorite thing. You don't like to tell people. Well, you're an Enneagram 9. You don't like conflict.
No. Oh, I hate conflict.
So would you say, like, as you were the counselor, like, you were fulfilled professionally, like your career gave you purpose and you really liked it?
And I worked 20 years after I retired.
No, you told me the other night that you finally retired at 80.
I did.
We're going to get to that. I don't want to jump ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so you were fulfilled professionally, and you had these 4 kids. What was going on personally? That's my question. How was your personal life when you were teaching?
Iffy. You know, Bud's not a bad person, but we are so different. So different. Brought up very different. His mother died when he was 7. I think he had a lot of deep-seated anger. I know he did. Quick temper. Very impatient. He was a good father, but he works harder. He did work harder than any man I ever knew.
Well, he's 90. He still works harder.
He tries hard to still work, and he's 90, yeah. But he's very, very restless and wired all the time. And I'm just the opposite. And he had no respect for women. He told me after we divorced that he thought all women were alike.
All women were alike.
Mm-hmm. You couldn't trust them. They didn't have any sense. That was basically, that's how he was taught to think of women. Yeah.
You couldn't trust them. They didn't have any sense.
That's pretty much a male attitude back then.
But that's so crazy to me that he felt that way and was married to you. Because you do have sense.
Yeah, he didn't like that either.
So he
really would rather I didn't have any sense.
Right. So that it disrupted his idea.
Yeah, right.
And he didn't like that.
Right.
What's interesting to me, do you feel like he's very different from granddaddy, your father? Because they say women marry their fathers, and I feel like they're very
absolutely different.
Why didn't you meet the psychological expectations?
I don't know. I didn't meet those expectations in many ways. No,
yeah.
He's not at all like my father. My dad's real easygoing. I had a wreck one time and came home. I was on a date and the car turned over and I hit my head to one side and then the other. I still have a knot right here.
Jeez.
And it hit here and here. And
before seatbelts.
Oh gosh, yes. And some people brought me home and I went in. I said, I had a wreck. The car turned over, and they said, "What are you hurt?" And I said, "Well, I hit my head, but I'm okay." Well, go to bed. We'll check in the morning.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
yeah. I can't imagine him ever being quick tempered.
Oh no,
or
not
impatient.
At all.
No, he was He was like a deep pool of water.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like grandmother was more the busybody than he was.
Oh yeah, she had a temper, but she didn't show it.
Oh, I never saw it.
No,
never. I was very lucky for the audience's purposes to have a very close relationship with my great-grandparents. And they lived for most of my childhood. They didn't die until I was in my 20s.
Right.
So why then? Why did you marry Daddy Bud? You were just...
Back then, if you had sex, you better get married. Because, it's a total and absolute disgrace if you had a baby too soon.
Okay. So you just felt like, I love him. Everybody else is getting married. We better lock this up in case I get pregnant. But you didn't get pregnant. You didn't get pregnant until 2 years after you got married.
Well, I actually did have a miscarriage.
So you had a miscarriage before Mom.
I got married in June. I had a miscarriage at Christmas. Yeah.
What was that like back then? Did anybody tell you? Did anybody talk to you?
February. About the miscarriage? The doctor told me he couldn't tell what it was, a girl or a boy, because the fetus was kind of much not there. And he told me that was very normal. I had a wonderful country doctor, and he delivered all my children. First 2 breech.
With twilight sleep?
I don't know what it was. It didn't put me to sleep. I still remember those births. And he just said, it's just, you're fine, and you'll be okay. And it's almost every woman, if she's having
Has a-
children, she'll have a
Miscarriage.
miscarriage at some point. Now they call it a spontaneous abortion, and
yeah.
poor women are having to go through hell over them right
I
now.
know. I know. So your personal life, your marriage is not great. Your professional life is. Your kids are growing up.
But didn't like that either.
He didn't like that you were professional.
That was successful.
Did you think? Why did he feel threatened when he is so capable?
He was threatened.
But I wonder why. Because he doesn't strike me as insecure.
He didn't even come close to getting through high school. He never went to school, and if he did, he left halfway through the day.
Okay.
He was supposed to have been a junior when he dropped out, and he decided he was going to finish, and we got his transcript. I think he had 7 or 8 credits.
I guess I just assumed he graduated.
School was
from high
the
school.
last thing on his mind.
But that's so interesting to me because it's not like he wasn't capable.
No, his daddy, let him quit school.
So
That
you
was
think
not
that
an
became
option.
a source of insecurity is that you had all this education?
Sure.
That's interesting though, because again, grandmother and granddaddy, same situation.
Mm-hmm.
She gets education. Did he drop out or did he graduated?
They ran off and got married, and the boys at school teased him so bad that he dropped out of high school a month before graduation.
Oh my God.
And his daddy let him do that.
Because he was married? They were teasing him because he was married?
Oh, yeah, they were teasing him. Because they tried to keep it a secret, and it was a big scandal.
Yeah, because they did a homecoming, right? They left at homecoming. I knew that.
They left it at a ball game. I don't know what's homecoming, but it's a ball game, yeah. Went over
And got
on
married.
a ferry to
and tried to keep it a
Metropolis
secret.
and tried to keep it a secret with 2 people with them. Fat chance.
And like
Teenagers,
Plus.
Teenagers.
So when do you remember the first time thinking, I don't want to be in this marriage anymore?
Didn't let myself think about it much
For years.
for a long time. It was like, I'm in it. I'm in this till my children are grown.
So that when you started thinking about it is when they were grown
No, I came close several times.
to leaving, even when they were little.
Yeah, but you don't, if there's any way you can avoid it. I mean, it's not like he hit me or was ugly to me verbally or anything like that. He just questioned everything. Why did you stay in town so long? You mean you were shopping an hour and you didn't buy anything? Which to him was so foreign because he bought it. He bought everything he saw always. Just insulted me
Just
by that, by not trusting me. He didn't want me to have anything with my friends. He wanted to control me. He was very controlling. Tried to be. And when I got a job, he thought I'd be gone.
But you didn't.
But he didn't change his behavior. Said he couldn't.
Said he couldn't change his behavior.
Yeah.
Did y'all ever go? I mean, there wasn't like marriage counseling or anything like that.
Oh, yeah, we tried that.
Oh, you did? When did you
Twice.
go to marriage counseling?
I left 3 times.
When was the first time you left?
And the first time I left, we tried marriage counseling. All of a sudden, he wants to fix it. He's Mr. Perfect. He's learned his lesson. Things are going to be different. Suckered me back in twice.
How old were you?
I was 45 when I got a divorce. So
Was it in your 40s?
43, 42, 43, yeah.
So it was all close in time towards the end.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You left and you got marriage counseling and you.
And I went back. And then the last time he suckered me back was so I'd buy that piece of property that broke us both.
Do you think that's why?
Oh, yeah.
That's tough though.
Plus,
to hear.
I mean, I did a lot of work there.
Yeah.
I paid, and I bought the groceries. My money all went into the operation, just like his did.
Do you think though that it was more than that? Do you think it was just transactional?
Oh, I think he still loves me, and I still love him. I just wouldn't live with him for $1 million a day.
I think too. That's what I think too.
Yeah,
Because y'all still were kind of like, it's not like you were angry and never spoke again. That was never the situation when I was growing up.
Well, for a while, but no.
I mean, my mom says that. She says when you finally got divorced, she thought she'd never talk to her brothers again.
Yeah.
So you finally got divorced and you left when you were 45 years old. You're like, I'm out.
I made that one stick after it was, yeah.
So
everybody
Lana was
falling apart.
How old?
She'd finished high school.
So she's out of high school.
That was the magic number to get her through high school.
And then you're like, I'm out. Do you regret not leaving sooner?
No.
No, you're glad you stayed, that they were grown.
Yeah. My children were used to a high standard of living, much higher than most of the people around us. I mean, we were spending money we didn't really have. We had a lot of debt and all that, but we still lived high,
Yeah.
And so they were used to a lot. And I thought, I can't, in their high school years, I can't move them into a house somewhere and try to make a living. And he would always say things like, well, if you leave, you'll never get a dime from me. I'll just get in the car and leave. And I believed him, basically, because he probably would have.
So she graduates from high school. You're 45 years old, and you're like, this is it. I'm done.
Mm-hmm. I just couldn't do it. I was tired. I would come up my driveway. We had a long driveway. And when I turned in, I could just feel the weight of the world.
That's what Mom said to
I
me
could
one
hardly
time.
get out of the car.
Yeah, she said, you don't know what it's like to come home and wish their car's not in the driveway.
Just going in the house. Just the whole burden of all of that stuff.
Just years. Because how long had you been married at this point?
And we were married 27.
Was it always a burden?
It's always hard work. I was the adult, basically.
You were always the bad guy.
I was the bad guy.
That's exhausting.
It is exhausting. 4 kids is exhausting.
3 kids is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's just so
I tried to tell you that.
It's so interesting to me as your granddaughter because my perception of you is so different. So that's a good to put this in the timeline. So how old were you when I was born?
Well, you were born in 81.
And y'all left right around this
I
divorce
was 45.
happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got
I was
divorced
45, yeah.
right before I was born, right? So
Yeah.
you're welcome for bringing all that sunshine into your life during a difficult moment.
Yeah, thank you for that.
First of all, did you watch Mom and Dad and think, oh no,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that she was doing the same thing? Because I mean, the stories are very similar. The stories are very similar. Everybody was getting married.
Yeah.
That's what my friends were getting married.
She was just a little older. That's the only difference. Yeah.
A little older, not much.
Not much.
And then I felt like I was the bad guy. I felt like I was the adult. Like, it's just a very similar story. But she got, and because they got divorced similar, not very close in time to when you guys did, right?
Let's see. You were born in 81. They got divorced about 85, maybe?
Yeah, I was like 3.
86. Yeah.
So you got divorced what year?
81.
81. So the year
That's when I left. I mean, and we got a divorce. We didn't have an agreement. We got a
was it ugly? It was
legal separation. Oh yes. Oh yes, Lord, yes. Roo, yes. Ugly.
because he just still didn't want you to go,
No. I was his property.
and he sure didn't want to share.
No, it was his. I was trying to take his money,
Right.
which he didn't have at that point. He just didn't know it yet. It was just a matter of time.
So when did you finally reach an agreement? And y'all weren't
Probably 2 years.
and it was bitter, and you were not talking.
Right, and there was nothing left. I paid my lawyer on time. I bought a car. The thing that caused me to leave the last time, I went out to get in the car to go to work one morning, and my car was gone. And Bud had a pickup truck sitting there with no keys in it. And I called Bobby Allen, who worked at Ballard at the time, and she came and got me and
That's your sister-in-law.
took me to work with her and took me to Paducah afterward, and I bought a car, took a car off the car lot that I bought finally. Still love it. It was a little Buick Regal, and it was navy and tan, and it was just gorgeous. And I brought it home, and we were not sleeping. We were not sleeping in the same bedroom, and he said, "I won't do that again." I said, "No, you won't." But he said, I'll let you. Of course, my cars were always put in his name. Everything was, all the vehicles. Because that's the way Daddy thought,
Yeah.
And we were buying them from Allen Auto Sales, of course, being the loyal family. Well, he did buy a new car one time. He came home and told me about it. But anyway, it was my car he was buying, but he didn't ask me what
So
car.
was this one in your name?
No.
It still was in
They
his
never
name.
were. Oh, the one I bought was, because I put it in my name.
That last one was in
It
your
was
name.
in my name, and also the mortgage was in my name, too. So I moved to Paducah and rented an apartment, and I was making apartment payments and car payments and lawyer payments. But I still had a real good time.
Yeah, what was that like?
My gosh.
When you were free.
Oh, God, it was wonderful.
You're just living your best life.
Oh, my gosh.
Your kids were gone,
Well, pretty much, yeah.
pretty much.
Atlanta was still, she had a room there. I had a 2-bedroom apartment over at More Mine, which was the place to live at that point.
And everybody was just, again, it's the 80s. Everybody's living large.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were like in college again? Like,
I just felt like I was free.
You just felt free.
Free at last. Thank God Almighty. Free at last.
That was the Stacy's days. That's when everybody
There's
was
the
going to
Stacy's days,
This was a
Jeremiah
restaurant town.
days, and yeah.
Did you go out partying all night? What did you do?
Oh, no, I came in time. I went to school. I mean, I always
Okay.
made school. It's one thing we do in our family. We go to school on time.
So you rent this apartment, you're free at last, but the divorce hurts because you have this mortgage. And
Oh, yeah. And the animosity. And Greg got mad and wouldn't talk to me for a long time. And ironically, he got a divorce after 27 years also. But anyway, that's another story. That's another
Well, I
story.
remember you telling me that you looked at Greg once and said, I have 3 other children, but I'm the only mother you'll ever have.
Yeah, he remembers that too.
It's impactful. That's an impactful thing to say.
Yeah.
But it's true.
It is true.
So how long did the boys not talk to you, Bo and Greg?
Oh, both talked to me. It's Greg.
Oh, it was Greg.
Greg didn't like change. He said to me one time, Mom, you've lived with him this long. Why are you going to leave now? And I said, tomorrow's a new day for me, just like it is you, Greg.
Were you surprised? Like, did you have this story in your head, like they're grown and I'm free? Did it surprise you how much they struggled with it, or did you anticipate that?
I had no idea that it would be so hard for them.
Okay, that's what I was.
I thought I was doing them a big favor by leaving when I did,
Wow.
instead of when they were little.
Yeah.
And I still think I did. I mean, they had a lot different life.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a difference between you and Mom. Like, this is,
Yeah.
I'm saving you. I'm not waiting until you're grown.
Right. Yeah.
Which I appreciated.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't matter when your parents get divorced. And it's funny, one time I had a dream that Mom and Ron, my stepfather, got divorced. And the dream was what I would classify as a nightmare because it's just never occurred to me. And I thought, this is what people feel. This is how it feels.
So you didn't know any difference. You're
I'm
right.
a child of divorce, sort of. Because
Yeah.
I have no conscious memory of
Right. And that's pretty much the way, they say that little kids do not know any different, and they can handle it okay.
Yeah.
As long as they don't see fighting and that stuff. And your dad was a wonderful
long distance
absentee
son.
daddy.
Yes, he really was.
He was.
Well, now he's not anymore. Now he lives here. So that's interesting. So you finally leave, you're free, but your kids are mad.
Well, one of them is.
One of them is mad. Then the love of your life, me, obviously, is born.
Yeah.
What did you think? That's very young to become a grandmother.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What did you think?
It's exciting to have a baby. To have one in the family. It's been a while.
It had been a while. Because Carla
Everybody
was the
was
baby.
excited.
Yeah, I was the eldest.
Everybody was excited about a baby.
Especially a redhead.
No matter what, people get excited about a
That's
baby.
true. Babies are great. Babies are universally great. I found that to be true.
Yeah.
But then, when did you move to Buckner? Because I didn't know this, but you said grandmother and granddad bought you that house.
I moved to Buckner in a year. I was at my year. Mom said, you need to find a house because you can make a house payment for what you're paying rent. They bought the house. They gave me $10,000 to renovate it. It was a total disaster. Big, pretty house, way too big. And
It was the best house, though.
we did a lot of work on it. Yeah, it was a beautiful house.
I love that house. This house is across the street from my children's elementary school.
Yeah. So we worked hard and got it together. And they set up a deal where I was paying them $300, which was what my
your
rent was.
Okay.
Maybe $50 more. I was paying them $300 a month. They were paying $5,000 a year onto the mortgage. So, you add that up, it was more than just what they were doing,
Yeah.
They did a lot. And of course, they made the down payment. Well, there wasn't any down payment. They just got the mortgage. And that's how we did that. And then I sold it after about 5 years. It was starting to fill up with my kids' stuff because they were in that transition thing where they were moving and living in apartments and moving somewhere else. And it was filling up and I was filling it up. And it had about 6 zillion windows, little panes and storm windows I couldn't handle. And it was just way too much house.
So where'd you move after that?
So I sold it and moved to Lone Oak and stayed a year and bought a house on Springdale Circle.
Springdale Circle.
Which was up the street from where you...
The golden era.
Yeah.
So, and you lived there for a
20
long time.
years, 20 years.
So you lived 3 doors up from us, basically my entire childhood. Mm-hmm. I rode with you and Mother. You dropped me off at school and went to Ballard.
Yeah.
So
yeah, those were good years.
they were good years. You were very, very present in my life growing up all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what's so interesting to me because I watched a reel this morning where it was like, when I was growing up, my mother, during the summer, it would be like, you're hungry, eat an apple. I don't want an apple. Then you're not that hungry. And then it's like, then the same child goes and asks the grandmother and she's like, what can I get you? And she like pulls out a menu of snacks and she's like, do you want me to make you a cake? What kind of frosting would you like? And so it's so interesting to hear you describe yourself, because that was not what it was like to have you as a grandmother. Obviously, you did not feel invisible. You felt larger than life. You were this single woman. You were traveling all the time, because there was a second marriage in there that we have not talked about.
We're not even going to talk about that.
Because it wasn't very long. How long were you married?
4 months.
4 months. Barely worth a mention.
Yeah.
And so you were like traveling. You were always out with your friends.
I had a great time.
Everybody, everything I did was perfect. There was never any criticism.
If it wasn't my darn body just going to hell.
You do live a, I
would have a great time. Yeah.
Yeah. You go out.
I still do, in spite of the fact my body does not want me to do all this.
But that's like, okay, so that's the halfway point, right? You have these first 40 years, you have the second 40 years. Mm-hmm. But I think in so many ways, it still feels like that first 40 years defines you, even though you've lived the second 40. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. Of course it does.
The years you were growing up and having kids and all that and being married, even though that was so long ago, still defines a lot of how you think about yourself.
Yeah, sure.
That's interesting.
Oh, I think the first few years of your life would define how you're going to think about yourself.
Yeah.
Before you even are old enough to reason,
Yeah.
Scary.
I feel a lot of change, though. I feel like a very different person already just these few years into my 40s. And I can see like the differences. And I don't feel as similar to myself like as a little girl. I don't think about myself as a little girl a lot. I don't remember things and think that they defined me and how I see things. Like, it's really weird.
I didn't do any of that until probably in the last 5 years.
Where you really started thinking back.
Maybe, COVID did a number on me. I guess it did a number on everybody. Yeah, I spent a lot of time analyzing people.
Well, because I think we have a lot of forward momentum. Did COVID finally force you to like stop and think about this? Oh, yeah. How old I am.
I learned how to be at home during COVID.
Wow.
I stayed on the move.
You did. You're very busy.
I didn't really want to be at home. I stayed on the move.
We have trouble tracking you down sometimes.
I liked my house and all that stuff, but I need to be somewhere. I was missing something all the time.
We are a paradox in our family. We love houses. I love my favorite thing you told me grandmother said when she was older. She was like 80 and she said, I wish I could just do one more house.
Oh, well, she's probably 85 when she said that.
I love it. Yeah. But we've had to talk you out of buying a house a couple times.
I went through that yesterday.
Yesterday, she's like, maybe I could just buy one.
And this was what's so ironic about yesterday. I started out yesterday, okay, you are going to simplify your life. You've been telling yourself that for 10 years now. You're going to get rid of this stuff that requires your time and your effort that you're not getting that much out of, like some of these plants you've got here. You're gonna do this. You're gonna get that garage straight. That's been a goal ever since I moved into this little peanut-sized house, and you're going to like this house, and you're going to appreciate what you've got, and you're going to quit thinking all the time about moving. And my friend and I went down and talked to your husband yesterday. I have become, by default, sort of the president of the HOA of these 30 townhouses where I live. And the girl who's the treasurer and I went down, and we're trying to get things in order that have been left in a mess since it was reorganized and split and added and all this stuff. It's crazy. It's a crazy mess, and we were trying to straighten that all out. Mainly she is. And anyway, we went down to his office yesterday. I had already made these speeches to my head about how I was going to downsize. I wasn't going to worry about that darn old patio anymore. I was not going to worry about
you do worry. You're a fretter.
And I didn't used to be like that at all.
I don't remember you.
You didn't have any time. I didn't have any time to fret. But that's what happens to you when you're home a lot and you live in your head all the time.
Yeah, okay.
So, I've become so self-centered, which is terrible. I never did like self-centered people. So, moving's too much.
What do you think about, this like last decade, like being in your 80s? What's it like?
Basically, Donald Trump's ruined him.
Oh, no. Don't let Donald Trump ruin your 80s.
He's just absolutely.
He wears you out, I know.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm scared for us.
Yeah. I hear that a lot from you. I do worry you have too much, like, cable news on in the background, which is
I'm a history major. I have felt hostile toward the German people, and I know you did too. We discussed it because they were so stupid to let Hitler take over, and we are following in their footsteps.
But see, history always makes me feel better. History doesn't make me feel worse. History makes me feel better. Like, I can see the patterns, yes, but the good patterns are there too. And I think that we do ultimately make some level of progress, even if it's spotting the pattern sooner.
The thing that that really upsets me about the whole deal is so many of my people, and I know many, many people, and I had access to their test scores, and I know they've got more sense than that, and they go for that craziness.
Well, because it's about emotion, not about logic.
And he was on there this morning doing all this thing about how awful the economy was and how terrible, and all these millions of people were coming over the border, and he stood up there and told those lies with such ease. And they are just, he believes them.
Yeah, I wonder how because you do have a massive.
So dangerous.
You do have a massive network of people. You have lots of friends. You know lots of people. When I would knock on doors for running for office.
Even in Paducah.
In Paducah, I would just say, I'm Betty Skidmore's granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And people would perk up.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that make you, like, knowing all these people and feeling all these people around you and watching them as you get older, doesn't it make you ultimately hopeful, though? People make me ultimately, at the end of the day, people make me hopeful. Knowing a lot of people, seeing how they live their lives.
It's really easy to let the negativity, the fear,
for sure,
pressure work on you. Yeah. I just want it to be over.
Yeah. Well, we all feel like that.
I just don't want him in my face. He just.
Well, he is the antithesis of basically every value you hold.
Absolutely. Every value.
You're every
value.
I mean, what I learned from you is, your sayings and grandmother's sayings, like, a job worth doing is worth doing well.
Right.
There's nothing worse than a liar.
Watch the pennies and nickels and the dollars will take care of themselves.
Yes. Like, it's like all these things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an anti-Trump edict book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically.
Uh-huh.
So I definitely
everything about him
understand how it runs all over me the same way it runs all over you. But I wonder too, I was thinking about this conversation as you've gotten older. You used to tell me that adult children were where it's at. Do you still feel like that, or do you feel like having adult children is harder than you thought it was at first?
Oh no, it's fine. It's wonderful.
You like having adult children. You're here for it.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know. As they go through hard things, you don't have any control over it. I don't love that. I don't love this trajectory I'm on.
It's hard for me to keep my mouth shut a lot of times.
Why do we have to?
Because they're adults, and I want them to treat them like an adult.
Fair.
And let them make their own decisions. And I don't know the answers to everything. Matter of fact, I know fewer answers now than I did when I was 18.
Yeah.
A lot fewer answers.
Fair enough.
A lot fewer.
I don't know. I think you're very wise. I think
The
you have
older
lots
you
of answers.
get, the more you realize how you don't know most things. You don't have concrete answers to very many things. I've gone through I guess you'd call it a crisis in faith, or at least a crisis in religion. Not in faith, but in religion.
I didn't feel like you were ever very religious.
I never did like church.
So what was the
I
crisis?
shouldn't say that out loud here.
No, it's fine. This is a safe space.
It's just hard to. All my friends, one group of my friends are all Baptists. Every one of them.
But you're not a Baptist, obviously.
No. Never been a Baptist.
So why do you feel like you've had a crisis of faith if you've never really liked religion?
I didn't ever admit it to myself.
Oh, you didn't feel like it was an
That I
acceptable
didn't
thing
like
to
church.
think.
Attention deficit people do not like any kind of thing where they have to sit and listen.
Fair enough.
They just don't.
But what I learned from you, I think, growing up, and I feel like your voice in my head gets stronger every year, which is probably, I have the experience. You are my grandmother, right? Like, grandmother was a huge influence in my life, obviously, but not in the same way. And so now I feel like I do what mom does, which is I quote you all the time.
Yeah.
I think about what you would say all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like this just sense of.
Oh, I still hear my mother in my head all the time. Yeah, all the time.
But I mean, the other cycle I would like to break, and I do think for the most part I have, is I am not as self-critical as you, mother or grandmother.
No.
I'm not hard on myself in the same way you guys are.
No.
I see that.
That's a blessing.
Yeah. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
But I don't feel that.
No. I don't think your mother is either.
No, she's not. You're right. You're right. She's not as self-critical as that.
Well, there was a lot was expected of women's place,
Lots of expectations, no control. Not a great combo.
No. Mm-mm.
A very disempowering.
That's why I don't like leadership positions. You don't have any control. You might think you do, but you don't.
Because you're just in charge of a lot of people you can't ultimately control.
Yeah, exactly.
Good point.
Exactly.
But I feel like what I learned from you, even though you were this big, living life, single, traveling, definitely my love of travel was instilled, I think, from you. You took me to Europe for the first time when I was 18. Mm-hmm. You and mom and me went. It was
had a wonderful time.
Formative experience.
Was it 4 weeks?
4 weeks.
Yeah.
A week in the English countryside. A
And
week
you were
in
in
London.
love the whole time.
Weekend. I was in love, calling home, talking to my high school
Ran up a
boyfriend.
huge phone bill.
Like $400 or something. It was a real sitch. But I think in my 20s, it felt like you had all these expectations of like, not other people as individuals, but like as a collective. And it's not that I rolled my eyes, but I thought like, that's silly. And the older I get, I'm like, no, she's right. Everybody needs to understand that like what they do affects everybody else. And they need to stop
Yeah.
like thinking that they're an island. No man is an
Exactly.
island.
We are not.
Not islands.
The more older I get, the more I realize how much we depend on each other
Yeah.
in every way.
But you're also fiercely independent. You're a real paradox.
I am.
You think we affect each other, but you refuse to accept help. Discuss.
Well, yeah. yeah, I do. I'm doing better, though. I'm doing better about
You are doing better.
Yeah.
But that's also, I mean, I guess it's not true that you don't accept help because you have lots of friendships and you don't form close friendships if you're never willing to connect and reach out and depend on other people. That's not how it works.
Right. Yeah.
What's your secret to having all these friends? Because you have friends younger than you. And that's where I worry as I get older because all my friends are my same age.
Well,
But I plan to live to 110. So
you
I'm going to have
better.
to be making some younger friends.
Well, when you get my age, you won't be looking forward to 110. I'll tell you that right now.
I'll probably have bionic arms and everything. So you never know.
I just, there are very few of my people I grew up with that are still alive. One of them, I didn't know him. I mean, he was from Kevel. He died this week. And Atlanta's close to his son, who lost his wife, the love of his life, about a year ago. And he struggled terribly. So that was sad. And, I think back to all those people that I knew that, just
What's that like?
Very few of them around. It's okay.
You'll make it. Okay. That's encouraging.
I always was, I could say, afraid I'd live to be old. My great-grandmother, lived to be 103.
Yeah.
And was still in great physical shape, except she didn't see very at all, hardly. Yeah, I don't like old age much.
I know you struggle.
I don't like it. One of my friends, and he came into my defense, I forwarded a thing about Donald Trump, and I knew it would poke the bear, and it was okay. And I got all these responses, and some of them were real ugly. One of them said, these people that go on and they start out with, all these Democrats are such awful, evil people. Well, half the population is Democrat. You live in a country where you think half the people are evil. Why don't you leave? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so he was defending me, and he loves it. He does it all. He pokes the bear all the time. His name is Jason Berry. You might have picked up on him in some way. He lives in New Orleans. And he called me elderly. He said, and you attacked this elderly lady. And I said, Jason, I'm old. I'm not elderly. I don't know what the distinction is. But that's the way I felt. Elderly. Nobody ever called me elderly. Old, yes.
But I mean, you have you're at 88, you live on your own, you drive.
Oh, yeah, I do.
You take what? No medications.
I take Zyrtex.
I don't think that counts.
Sam's brand, yeah.
I mean, you have this sort of golden idea of reaching this age, and it's still hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm clumsy, I have some vertigo that aggravates me to death. Aches, pains, problems, physical problems.
Do you think, this podcast that I listen to that we're basing this conversation on, Wiser Than Me, a lot of them are creatives, and so they're just still working. Do you think you'd feel different if you were still working or if you had a job that you could work at this age?
No.
No, you'd still struggle. It's still hard.
Yeah, it's a full-time job.
Being old.
Mm-hmm. It's full-time.
Oh, that makes sense.
By the time I take care of my car, which is now needs tires and needs to be cleaned, my
because everything
house
takes longer.
and my
too.
body, everything takes longer.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard work.
But what do you think about being 89 or 90 or 95 or 100? Think about it?
No. I don't want to be 100.
You don't want to be 100? You're so close. You can spit on it.
No, I'm not. That's 12 long, hard-working years. It keeps getting harder. It does.
So what do you think about?
My mother put on such a show. I didn't think it was going to be like this.
So, but what do you think about death?
I'm not afraid to die.
You're not afraid to die?
I'm afraid of the process. My biggest fear is a nursing home. My only fear.
Is a nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. Why?
And pain of death. Because it's not a good place.
I don't know. Some of them look popping, Meemaw.
I don't hardly go to them.
They got schedules. They got
assisted living people. Yeah, I'm all over assisted living.
Okay.
Where Daddy was over Jackson Oaks, it's lovely.
Okay.
I could do that fine. I think about it sometimes.
Yeah.
When I try to keep my house.
I love a schedule of activities.
I have this other problem with having help in my house. Like I said, I love the guy that did my.
Well, you've lived by yourself half your life now.
And I don't want somebody in my house. Nobody can clean to suit me. I can't clean to suit myself. I've got a perfectionist streak, which is an awful thing to have, a terrible thing, a terrible curse to be a perfectionist because there's no perfection.
That's right.
So you're always uphill. Everything's uphill. You can't get there. And the more I'm in my house, the more I see things need to be cleaned, need to be fixed, need to be done. Move the furniture around, do this, do that. It's just crazy.
I'll just send my kids over and you can fill your life with your great-grandchildren and not
I spend so much time with little things that I used to not even have time to think about, most less do.
Yeah.
Was not even aware existed.
Yeah, I think that's the tough part, right? Like, you're busy.
Yeah.
I do think, I love being busy so much. I do think about, what will happen when the kids aren't here? What will happen when I retire?
Yeah, well, you'll get into something else.
Yeah, I'll find something else
and
to
then
be
something
busy
else and something else.
Because you are busy still.
Because you need a project. I have to have a project to be happy.
Okay.
But they wear me out.
It's a real paradox.
And I do not want a big enough project to have to move. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But then I have those moments. I say, okay, I need to. Then I think, well, I'll buy another car. Oh, my gosh.
I'll buy another car.
Getting used to those darn smart cars, smart TVs.
But you have not let tech slow you down. You're pretty tech adaptable.
But it drives me crazy. You know how it doesn't work it's just always an aggravation.
So what would you tell someone at 88? What do you want me to understand that you don't think I get yet?
About 88?
Or just the second half of life?
The thing that surprised me is, I think, I didn't know how to be old. I still don't know how to be old. Some people can just lay back,
and relax,
and get in their recliner and feel okay about it, and drink Diet Coke and eat all the wrong food, and get fat.
I watched that couple that they travel, and before they hit the road, they get a donut and they sing a song about their donut. I was like, that's life right there.
Yeah.
They just sing a little song about their donut before they hit the open road.
When I do those things.
So maybe the key to being old is not being so hard on yourself.
Well, then if you let yourself go, then where are you? Sick, still
That's
here.
True. That's
and
true.
Still here. Sicker.
Well, that is the
here.
paradox of women aging, right? We live longer, but we have poorer health. But you don't. You are not that
I'm
person.
Just been blessed. I am so blessed with the health I have. But I do have some issues that are a real aggravation, which I won't go into out loud.
I thought that's what old age is complaining about your health.
Yeah.
My friends and I joke we already do that. Talk about our procedures and everything. Yeah. Well, you're still my goal. You're still what I want to grow up and be like.
Well, I have to keep setting that example.
That's right.
So I have to keep living up to your expectations.
Exactly right. Not many people would volunteer to say, yeah, sure, I'll come and talk about my life and vulnerabilities and struggles. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
I think it's pretty brave.
Yeah.
I've always seen you as brave.
It's foolish sometimes.
Well, doesn't that
to the
bravery
point.
Include a little bit of foolishness?
It does. Yeah.
Well, I love you, and I'm glad that you're my grandmother.
Well, thank you, and I love you too, and I'm glad you're my granddaughter. I'm so proud of you.
For me.
Oh.
It was such a gift to have you 2 doors up my whole life growing up.
It was a gift for me too.
Thank you to Sarah and Mima for that beautiful discussion. My grandmother Joy died when my youngest daughter Ellen was 4 days old. I gave the obituary at her funeral, which was a very out-of-body experience for me because I was a new mom again and recovering from birth and getting to know Ellen. And I had our daughter Jane, who was almost 4. So it was a busy time. And this was a nice chance for me making this episode to kind of sit back and think more about my grandmother and what I would hope she could hear from me if she were here today. My grandmother's middle name was Joy, and she ran with it. She kept her house well stocked. Closet shelves filled with board games, a side table with a cabinet for decks of cards, Reese's peanut butter cups in the silverware drawer. She wore floral prints and costume jewelry and lipstick every day. She wasn't sure what the point of a coat was if it wasn't red. She tied clover into necklaces and filled gallon jars with sweet pickles. She set the table days before a party and covered it with a white sheet. She made paper chains to count the days until Christmas, until summer, until a vacation. She was a master of anticipation. She either told the truth bluntly or kept a secret forever. She got mad and stayed that way until she was ready to change modes. She moved her mother into her house and spent much of her adult life caring for her, keeping her hair done and her nails polished and her stockings stretched up beneath the hem of dresses and then nightgowns. She lost her husband unexpectedly and too young, and I wonder what it would have been like to have seen her in love. She served breakfast, dinner, and supper, and sausage was always a possibility. She sliced canned peaches and tossed them in strawberry jello. She encouraged me to have kids, so I wouldn't miss out on what she said is the best life has to offer. She felt God really blew it in designing birth and death. She left us before she died. And I would give anything for her hard drive. What all was there to remember that she couldn't access? My grandmother's middle name was Joy, and every time a breeze rattles the wind chimes from her funeral, I know that somewhere, somehow, she is still running with it. Thank you so much for joining us today as we celebrated our grandmothers. We'd love to hear about the special people in your lives and how you commemorate them and their life experiences. We'll be back in your ears on Tuesday with a brand new episode. Until then, have the best weekend available to you.
Pantsuit Politics is produced by Studio D Podcast Production.
Elise Knapp is our managing director. Maggie Pinton is our director of community engagement.
Xander Singh is the composer of our theme music with inspiration from original work by Dante Lima.
Our show is listener supported. Special thanks to our executive producers:
Martha Brunitsky,
Allie Edwards,
Janice Elliott,
Sarah Greenup,
Julie Haller,
Tiffany Hassler,
Emily Holiday,
Katie Johnson,
Emily Helen Olson,
Barry Kaufman,
Catherine Vollmer,
Lori Ladow,
Lily McClure,
Linda Daniel,
The Hutchins,
Tracy Putoff,
Sarah Ralph,
Jeremy Sequoia,
Katie Steigers,
Karen True,
Annika Uvaline,
Nick and Elisa Valelli,
Amy Whited,
Lee Shea McDonough,
Morgan McHugh, Jen Ross,
Sabrina Drago,
Becca Dorval,
Christina Quartararo,
Shannon Frawley,
Jessica Whitehead,
Samantha Chalmers,
Crystal Kemp,
Megan Hart,
The Adair family,
Jenny Francis,
Leanna Pilgrim Larson,
The Monene family,
Ashley Renee,
Michelle Palacios,
Jeff Davis, Melinda Johnston, Michelle Wood, Nicole Berkless, Paula Bremer, and Tim Miller.